Hey, good afternoon. This is Attorney Alexander Benikov here. One of the type of cases that I deal with the most and that I get the most questions about and that there's a lot of misunderstanding about is Arizona domestic violence cases. If you have any questions about these types of cases, please contact my office at 602-253-6592 or my website at Benikov Law. Um, the two most questions that I get most is, well, what does the Arizona law actually say and what does it mean? And the second part that I'll get into in a minute is what to do if you're charged with this type of offense. So, the first thing to understand about Arizona domestic violence laws is that the definition of domestic violence is a lot broader than it is in some states. Generally, when people think of domestic violence, they think of boyfriend, girlfriend, or husband or wife. While the Arizona statute definitely includes that, the definition is actually a lot broader. If you're looking for where you can find all these definitions, it's in Arizona statutes, section 13-705 in that section. So what the law says is that the domestic violence statutes apply if the relationship between the victim and the defendant is one of marriage or former marriage, or a person residing or having resided in the same household. The second part is important because it doesn't mean you have to be in a romantic relationship with the other person to be charged under the statute. So a couple of years ago, I had a case where roommates, college roommates, got into a fight, and one of the roommates was charged under the domestic violence statute, even though they weren't any kind of romantic partners; they were just roommates. You can also be charged under this law if the victim or the defendant have a child in common, if the victim or defendant's spouse by blood or court order as a parent, grandparent, child, grandchild, brother or sister, or by marriage as a parent-in-law, grandparent-in-law, step-parent, grandparent, stepchild, step-grandchild, brother-in-law, or sister-in-law. So again, pretty broad definition. Also, if the victim is a child who resides or has resided in the same household as the defendant and who's related by blood to a former spouse of the defendant. So again, pretty broad definition. And lastly, the relationship between the victim and the defendant is currently or was previously a romantic or sexual relationship. So again, it can be any of those, and you can still be charged under a domestic violence statute. The statute goes on to say that there are some variables that prosecutors can look at, or the police, in determining if something should be charged as domestic violence. So statute says the following factors may be considered in determining whether the relationship between the victim and the defendant is currently or was previously a romantic or sexual relationship. If A, the type of relationship, by looking at the type of relationship, the length of the relationship, or the frequency of the interaction between the victim and the defendant, and if the relationship has terminated, the length of the time since the termination. So this is for those relationships where they used to be romantic, but the prosecutor is trying to determine if it's enough of a relationship to be charged as domestic violence. By now, you should be able to start seeing that this is very complicated, and one of the many reasons you should hire an experienced attorney for these types of cases. So, what are the possible consequences of a domestic violence conviction? And I'll back up a little bit. So, in Arizona, it's important to understand that domestic violence is a type of a designation for crimes. So, you can be charged with an assault or a domestic violence assault, or, for example, a criminal damage or domestic violence criminal damage. The distinction being, if you are alleged to hit a stranger, it may be an assault. If you're alleged to hit your husband or wife, it can be a domestic violence assault. So a lot of the time when somebody's charged with a crime, they don't understand that the domestic violence is a type of designation. It's not the crime itself. Again, kind of confusing, but that's what the law is. So going back to the possible consequences of a domestic violence conviction, first, you can face jail, depending if it's a misdemeanor or felony. There could be jail or prison time. There could be probation, supervised or unsupervised, again, depending on what city you're charged with or what court you're charged with, or if you're charged with the crime as a felony. There's also generally mandatory classes. Well, not generally, always mandatory classes. Normally the classes are 6 months. They can be longer. There can also be implications for your right to own firearms in certain cases under some federal statutes. So again, a lot of different consequences. The amount of jail that somebody could be looking at when charged with this depends on a lot of variables, and obviously a good lawyer can work with the prosecutor to hopefully try to get a better outcome. Sometimes a dismissal, but a lot of the time that's not possible. And again, when you're looking for a defense lawyer, be careful, as I've mentioned before, anybody promising you any kind of results, because any defense lawyer that guarantees you a result, you should stand up and run out of their office as fast as you can. The second issue that comes up is what to do if you're charged with a domestic violence case. The first thing is don't volunteer information to the police. A lot of the time the police will talk to you as the suspect and try to get information out of you. As you've heard in movies and TV shows, anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, and that's very true. Well, you be polite to the police, give your basic information, your date of birth, name, stuff like that, but then ask to speak with the defense lawyer as soon as you can. And again, remember that anything you say can and usually will be used against you in a court of law. As far as finding a defense attorney to represent you with a domestic violence charge, talk to that lawyer and ask them how many of these types of cases they handle. The cases carry a certain set of possible consequences, and you need a defense lawyer that's used to handling these types of cases. So with any kind of professional, you don't want to just find somebody out of the phone book. You want to look at their website. Obviously, you want to make sure that they're licensed in the state of Arizona, and try to get referrals if you can. A lawyer's awards on their websites can give you some kind of indication, but the best way to get a sense for a lawyer is to talk to them and to ask them, how many of these types of cases have you handled? How long have you been in practice? Because you want a lawyer that you can work with, that you're comfortable with, that you get along with, because it is a type of partnership where you will be working with them. So hopefully this has been useful information. Again, if you have any questions, please call our office at 602-253-6592 or check out our website at benikhovlaw.com. That's B as in boy, ENIKOVLAW.com, or click on the banner. Thank you.